No one on Earth knew why the sky opened that morning, or why a descending streak of violet fire carved through the clouds like a blade through silk. Some thought it was a meteor. Others prayed it wasn't another survey probe from whichever bored civilization wanted to measure humanity's atmospheric moisture again. But the truth became clear when the massive shadow broke through the haze. The ship was too smooth, too elegant, too alive to be anything built by human hands. It descended with a quiet arrogance, a royal hush, as if the sky itself bowed to let it pass. When it landed in the field outside Halden Ridge, the air rippled with energy, not threatening, but deliberate. This was not a weapon. This was an entrance. And that was exactly how Princess Loranavel Soral of the Astrix Dominion liked it. She stepped down the ramp slowly, allowing the sunlight to catch the shimmer of her silver-blue skin. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed like glowing strands of nebula light, weightless and drifting as if underwater. Her eyes glowed like amethysts warm from within. Her royal armor gleamed, slender plates folding over her form in iridescent layers that shifted color with every breath. She expected fear, kneeling, shock, worship. Instead, the first human she saw was a man standing in the wild grass with a shovel in his hand and dirt on his jeans. He blinked twice like someone who expected a neighbor's cow but instead found an alien princess. His name was Elias Quinn, and he had come out here to dig a trench for irrigation. He startled easily, but he calmed quickly, a human quirk Lorana found instantly irritating and oddly intriguing. She walked toward him with the regal poise of one who had rehearsed this moment for years. "Human male," she announced, raising her chin. "Kneel in recognition of Princess Loranavel, first daughter of the Dominion, claim holder of this planet and all who dwell upon it." Elias leaned on his shovel. "Kneel?" he asked. "Lady, I don't even kneel when I tie my shoes." It was the first time anyone in Lorana's life had responded to her with anything other than trembling obedience, or carefully managed diplomatic fear. She wasn't sure if she wanted to vaporize him, or something else entirely. "This world falls under my authority," she continued, voice sharpened with annoyance. "I have come to claim it in accordance with Dominion Protocol 72. "Never heard of it," Elias said. "Also, you're kind of standing in my irrigation field." Lorana froze. No one spoke to royalty like this. No one treated a planetary claim like an interruption to a chore. She narrowed her amethyst eyes. "Are all humans this disrespectful?" "Depends," he said. "Are all alien princesses this bossy?" The wind stirred between them, kicking up dust. Something very unfamiliar happened inside Lorana's chest. A tightness, a flicker, like a relay misfiring in her heart. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. "Do you understand what I am offering your species? Integration. Dominion protection. The prestige of becoming one of my territories." Elias scratched his jaw. "I don't know. Sounds like an MLM pitch but with more lasers." Her jaw fell open. "An ML what?" "Never mind," he said, waving the thought away. "Why exactly do you want Earth?" "The Dominion seeks expansion," she replied. "We require a new resource station. Your world possesses abundant water, organic biomass, and a shockingly chaotic biosphere. Ideal for our needs." Elias frowned. "So you want our planet? All of it?" "Yes." "And what if we say no?" Lorana stepped closer, shadows of her ship rolling behind her like a waking dragon. "Then I will take it." She expected him to run. Or panic. Or at least look impressed. Instead, he sighed. "Lady, you're standing in a field yelling about conquest, and all I can think is that you're going to scare my neighbor's chickens again." She stared. What was this man? And why did his scent, warm cedar, sweat, earth, send a strange warmth down her spine? He wasn't attractive by Dominion standards. Humans weren't known for symmetry or bioluminescent elegance. Yet something about his calm defiance, his blunt honesty, his refusal to flinch, it stirred something in her. He was not beautiful. He was interesting. She hated how compelling that was. "Human," she said finally, stepping close enough that her voice softened despite itself. Do you not fear me? I mean, Elias admitted, you do have a spaceship and eyes that glow like you're about to smite somebody, so yeah, a little. But you stand here anyway. Well, someone has to deal with whatever this is, he replied. A flicker. A spark. For the first time in her life, an emotion she could not quantify bloomed in her chest. Dominion scientists would call it neurological destabilization. Human poets would call it attraction. But Lorana had no frame of reference for either. Her breath caught. She took a half-step back, as if distance could neutralize the effect. Human, she said quietly. State your designation. Elias. Elias, she repeated slowly, as if tasting it. He grinned, and she found herself staring longer than she intended. Her glow-shifted hair dimmed slightly, a biological sign of emotional fluster she desperately hoped he didn't understand. But he noticed. Everything okay? He asked. Your face is distracting, she muttered. My face? I do not wish to elaborate. The wind rustled again. Lorana felt strangely exposed standing there on this primitive planet in front of a man who looked at her not as a conqueror, not as royalty, but as a person he was trying to figure out. It was infuriating. It was magnetic. And she could not look away. Elias gestured at the colossal ship behind her. So, Princess, does this mean we're at war, or are you here to talk first? Lorana swallowed, her eyes drifting to his bare forearms, the way the sunlight caught the
parley, as Lorena quickly discovered, was nothing like she expected. Dominion etiquette had prepared her for negotiations with rulers who calculated the outcome of every conversation in microseconds, with eye-to-eye precision and flawless logic. Humans, as it turned out, were chaotic by design. Elias led her through the outskirts of Halden Ridge, past crooked fences and ramshackle barns, talking about irrigation channels, local crops, and which trees produced the best sap for syrup. He gestured at each object with an ease that suggested ownership and care, even if it was messy and improvisational. Lorana followed, trying to maintain a semblance of alien grace. But every time a chicken darted across the path or a dog barked, her ship's gravity field nearly went haywire in panic. You could land on a proper field. You know, Elias said casually as a hen scattered under her boot. I prefer precision, she replied, brushing imaginary dust off her iridescent armor. Landing in the middle of your so-called crops is symbolic. It demonstrates dominance. Elias glanced at her and raised a skeptical eyebrow. Or bad manners. Probably both. Lorana blinked, momentarily thrown. No one had ever contradicted her so casually, not in all her centuries of diplomatic preparation. It was irritating, frustrating, and astonishingly compelling. They reached the old mill by the river, where Elias stopped and plucked a rusted crank from the ground. So, he said, twirling it in his hands, if your plan is to conquer, maybe you should understand humans first. It'll make it easier. Lorana tilted her head. Understand humans? I'm already aware of your species' physiological and cognitive structures? Yeah, but that doesn't explain this. He gestured at her, and for the first time, Lorana noticed how much she drew attention, how her luminous hair caught the sun, how her glowing eyes reflected the rippling water. You're distracting. The word hit her like a disruptor pulse. Distracting. Nothing in the Dominion lexicon included a term for the sensation twisting her chest and unbalancing her strategic calculations. She felt warm, unreasonably aware of her own breathing, the slight shimmer of her armor, the hum of her own biological systems. Elias, of course, had no idea. He just leaned casually against the mill wall and whistled, as if she were part of the landscape. You humans, Lorena said finally, voice tight, operate under such illogical rules. Exactly, he said with a grin. That's what makes us fun. Fun? She repeated, her voice dropping an octave she didn't mean. Yes, fun. You might call it chaos, but it works. He tapped his chest. We care, we screw up, we apologize, we hug. And sometimes, he said with a mischievous gleam, we fall in love. Lyrina froze. Love? He nodded. Yeah, you should try it sometime. It's weird, unpredictable, and completely unavoidable once it hits you. She blinked, trying to assimilate this human anomaly. Dominion training never prepared her for this. Dominion strategy manuals didn't include emotional subversion from short, messy humans in genes. I fail to understand why this is relevant, she said, voice trembling slightly. Elias tilted his head. It's relevant because you're standing there like you're about to conquer the planet, but you're also staring at me like I just walked on a supernova. Her inner circuits stuttered. Supernova. Staring circuits? Misfire. Lorena looked away, embarrassed, then back again. Elias was smiling faintly, not in mockery, but with genuine amusement and a touch of patience. She hated how human patience felt like an embrace without contact. You're infuriating, she admitted softly. And you're confusing, he replied, leaning closer. I think that's what makes you interesting. The words sparked something alien in her. Dominion protocol dictated respect, fear, awe. None of it had prepared her for fascination, for warmth, for the sudden, inexplicable pull she felt toward this human male who had no rank, no influence, and yet somehow controlled her attention with effortless ease. They spent hours walking through fields, discussing irrigation, starlight navigation, and human meals. Lyrina observed him closely, noticing every gesture, every flicker of expression, every nuance. The more she observed, the more anomalies appeared. His willingness to admit mistakes, his ability to joke when danger could be near, the way he treated the earth, animals, and herself as though they mattered. Dominion logic calculated outcomes and risks. Humans, it seemed, calculated meaning. At one point, Elias paused near the riverbank, plucking a smooth stone from the water. You see this? He said. Humans find beauty in small things. A shiny rock, the way sunlight dances on ripples, or a cloud that looks like it's laughing. Conquering a planet doesn't make you feel alive. Paying attention to it does. Lyrana's glowing hair dimmed slightly, betraying the turmoil in her core. She considered annihilation, diplomacy, conquest, strategy, and love all at once. The Dominion had never taught her to reconcile these vectors simultaneously. I do not... She started, but found herself tripping over words for the first time in centuries. I do not understand how this feeling is advantageous. Elias smiled softly. Sometimes it's not about advantage. Sometimes it's about living. And right now, you're alive? Her circuits misfired. Her sensors blurred. The warmth in her chest grew. She felt something that no battlefield, no conquest, no planetary claim could produce. By the time the sun set, casting streaks of amber and violet across the fields, Lyrina realized that the conquest she had imagined, the seamless, obedient dominance over a human world, no longer mattered. Elias turned toward her, brushing mud from his jeans. So, dinner? Or do you usually eat humans on first contact? Her lips twitched involuntarily. Dominion protocol forbade smiles in formal negotiation. But she smiled anyway. I accept your invitation, she said, voice slightly faltering, but sincere. Elias's grin widened. Good. Earth cuisine is terrible by galactic standards, but I make a mean stew. Lyrina blinked. He had made her laugh. The realization hit her with the force of a supernova. A laughing human? Unexpected, irritating, fascinating, unfair. She had arrived to claim a planet, and instead, she had discovered something she had never anticipated, a human man whose simplicity, courage, and warmth made her heart, for lack of a better Dominion term, falter. The conquest had failed. And yet, for the first time in centuries, Lyrina felt utterly victorious. If you like, I can now continue with. Dinner was a disaster in the best possible way. Elias had prepared a human stew, thick and savory, with chunks of meat and vegetables that refused to stay in the broth. Lyrina watched with a mixture of fascination and mild horror as Elias skillfully navigated the chaos, scooping portions into bowls while humming a tune she didn't recognize. The aroma was oddly comforting, and for the first time since leaving her homeworld, Lorena felt completely unguarded. She had expected diplomacy, fear, awe. She had expected humans to cower or flee or beg. She had not expected laughter. She had not expected warmth. She had not expected. This Elias glanced up at her. Here, try some. And be careful, it's still hot. Lorena raised an armored hand, hesitating. In Dominion culture, touching human food was beneath a princess. But curiosity, and something far more dangerous, got the better of her. She took a small spoonful. The flavors hit her instantly. Smoky, earthy, a hint of spice, somehow grounding her to a planet she was meant to conquer. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she caught herself shivering involuntarily. Elias smiled knowingly. You like it? He asked, leaning back in his chair, elbows on the table. It is flavorful, she admitted, her glowing hair dimming slightly. Dominion sensors would have noted a spike in neural activity correlated with pleasure. For humans, she supposed it was a compliment. Flattering coming from a princess, Elias said, teasing. I'll take it. Lorena felt an unfamiliar heat in her chest. She was supposed to assert authority, to command, to intimidate. Yet here she was, sitting across from a human man in a small, rustic kitchen, sipping stew, and finding herself distracted by the way he tilted his head when he smiled. After dinner, Elias led her outside to the ridge overlooking Halden Ridge. The night sky was a tapestry of stars, brighter here than in the city. Lorena had seen galaxies, nebulae, and supernova from orbit and warships, but the stars seen from a quiet human farm felt different, personal, intimate. Pretty, isn't it? Elias said, pointing upward. Your planet has beauty, she admitted. Not efficient, but compelling. He laughed softly. Efficient is boring. You can have efficiency in space stations and military fleets. But down here, we make do with imperfection. She studied him, trying to reconcile this human philosophy with her Dominion worldview. Dominion conquest had always been about control, precision, and order. Yet every time Elias spoke, she felt the strange, unpredictable stirrings of curiosity and desire. He was reckless, chaotic, and entirely unafraid. He was human, and he was magnetic. Silence stretched between them. Not awkward, not forced, but heavy with unspoken acknowledgement. Lorena found herself leaning just slightly closer than necessary. Elias noticed, and his heart, a human one, fragile yet resilient, skipped a beat. You're different from any human I expected, she said finally, her voice low, almost hesitant. You are bold, careless, uncalculated. Yet you survive? You thrive. Different from what you expected? He asked. She hesitated. In Dominion culture, revealing uncertainty was taboo. Yet here, under Earth's stars, she felt it safe to speak honestly. I expected fear, obedience, chaos contained in predictable patterns. I did not expect laughter. I did not expect courage without protocol. I did not expect. Her voice faltered. I did not expect you. Elias's gaze softened. I didn't expect a glowing, tentacled alien princess to land in my field either. Guess. Life's full of surprises. The words, casual as they were, felt like a tether pulling her closer. Dominion instincts screamed to maintain distance, assert authority, and complete her mission. Yet every fiber of her being urged her to lean closer, to feel warmth instead of command, to taste the unpredictability humans called intimacy. They stood side by side in silence, watching the stars. Lorena's hair glimmered in the moonlight, drifting like a ribbon of cosmic energy. Elias reached out unconsciously, brushing a stray strand behind her ear. The gesture was human, simple, intimate, a declaration without words. Her chest tingled. Dominion sensors would have reported a severe system malfunction. Her inner voice whispered warnings: mission, protocol, conquest. Yet another voice, softer, deeper, infinitely more persistent, whispered back: happiness, curiosity, desire. I do not understand this feeling, Lorena admitted softly. It's okay, Elias said, still gazing at the stars. Humans don't always understand it either. We just go with it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's worth it. She turned to him, meeting his gaze. Something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, affection, fascination, a tentative spark of romance that neither could fully define, yet both could feel. Suddenly the air rippled. Lyrana stiffened. Her ship, sensing the presence of Dominion monitors, had activated low-orbit surveillance alerts. An energy ripple swept across the ridge. Somewhere far above, a fleet had noticed her absence. They were tracking her every move, expecting her to be asserting control. Not sipping stew and staring at a human boy, Elias noticed her sudden tension. "Hey," he said gently, "whatever's happening, you're not alone. I've got your back." She froze, caught between instinct and longing. The Dominion Code screamed for authority, for conquest, for the completion of her mission. Yet Elias's calm assurance, his willingness to stand beside her, undermined centuries of training. And in that moment, under the stars of Earth, Lyrana made a choice. Not a strategic one. Not a conquest-driven one. A human one. "I choose to stay," she whispered, almost to herself. Elias glanced at her, confused. "Stay?" She smiled faintly, an alien expression softened by human influence. "With you." The air between them shimmered. The stars overhead seemed to pulse with silent approval. And somewhere the Dominion fleet took notice. Their war machine's most disciplined operative was distracted, and entirely, irreversibly captivated. Lyrana and Elias stood together in silence, leaning closer, hearts and worlds quietly realigning. Mission parameters were irrelevant. Empire protocols could wait. Here, under Earth's vast night sky, conquest had been replaced by curiosity. Chaos had become connection, and the boundaries between alien and human began to blur. She had come to claim a planet. She had found a human instead, and nothing would ever feel the same again. Morning came to Halden Ridge with soft golden light spilling across fields that had once seemed mundane, but now gleamed with significance. Lyrana awoke in Ilias's small farmhouse, the scent of fresh-baked bread mingling with the lingering hum of her ship parked just beyond the garden. She felt the odd, fluttering warmth of anticipation, a sensation that Dominion science had no explanation for. Humans called it excitement, desire, love. She had always scoffed at such illogical terms. Yet the feeling pressed insistently against her chest. Impossible to ignore. Elias was already in the kitchen, humming a tune she didn't recognize and carefully spreading butter across thick slices of bread. When he saw her standing in the doorway, he smiled, wide and genuine, teeth catching the sunlight. "Morning, Princess." "Sleep well." "Curiously," she admitted, "I did." The statement was true in ways that exceeded mere rest. She had dreamed of stars, galaxies, and strategic calculations. But now there was a new element in her subconscious. Him, Elias, his voice. His warmth, the way his eyes sought hers without expectation or judgment. He had infiltrated the defenses of her mind as effortlessly as he had the perimeter of her heart. He handed her a plate. Breakfast. Earth-style. Hopefully edible for a galactic royal. She took it carefully, observing the small imperfections with keen interest: uneven butter, slightly over-toasted edges, a stray crumb on the counter. It was human, and it was perfect. She realized then that this imperfection, this chaos, was far more compelling than any well-executed Dominion conquest she had ever seen. As they ate, the hum of her ship shifted. Sensors detected movement in orbit, Dominion patrols scanning the planet, sending messages, demanding updates. Protocol demanded she respond with authority, with strategy, with dominance. But Lyrana hesitated. Elias noticed the change in her expression. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Or is this the part where alien royalty starts worrying about fleets?" She met his gaze and found herself smiling faintly. "You have no idea how much I wish this were irrelevant," she said. "But Dominion fleets do not recognize emotional reasoning as valid. They expect results." He shrugged. "Then maybe you give them a new kind of result. One they didn't expect." Lyrana considered this. And then, For the first time in her life, she made a decision that was neither tactical nor conventional. She would prioritize what humans understood, what humans felt. Love, connection, choice, not conquest. Not protocol. Elias, she began, her voice steady yet trembling in ways she had never allowed herself to feel before. I will not claim your planet. Not today. Not like this. He blinked. Wait. You're letting me keep Earth? She laughed softly, a melodic sound that seemed to harmonize with the morning breeze. I am not letting anyone keep it. I am choosing to stay here, beside you, with you, and perhaps to understand why your species clings to such chaos and still thrives. Elias grinned, warmth flooding his face. Well, I can handle a little chaos if it means you're sticking around. The shift in her systems was immediate. Her ship hummed in approval, though it still couldn't fully comprehend the emotional subroutines she had activated. Her body, her mind, and her carefully cultivated authority were all recalibrating to accommodate something far more unpredictable: affection, intimacy, and human unpredictability. Lorana took his hand. It felt warm, alive, grounding. She marveled at its fragility, at the courage embedded in its simplicity. And when she saw him squeeze back gently, she felt an odd sense of surrender, not defeat, but release. To feel something other than duty or protocol, to feel entirely inexplicably human, the Dominion patrols pinged again, demanding reports. Lorana accessed her communicator, her glowing eyes softening as she spoke. Return to base. The mission is no longer required. Earth is under new protection. And I am occupied. There was a silence in the signal, a hesitation, and then compliance. The fleet retreated, their warships leaving the planet's orbit without confrontation. Lorena had achieved more than she ever could through strategy or threat. She had convinced her superiors that the human element was not a liability but a lesson, and that their princes had found an unexpected purpose, not domination, but connection. Elias laughed, disbelief and delight mingling in his voice. So, you just made them leave? Not me, she corrected softly. We, she turned, her fingers brushing his. We chose. The words carried more weight than any imperial decree. They were simple, but they were binding in a way that no protocol could have anticipated. And as they stood together on the ridge, bathed in sunlight and the quiet hum of life around them, Lorena realized that conquest had been replaced by something infinitely more challenging and rewarding: love. Days turned into weeks. She learned to cook Earth meals, though her attempts often ended in minor explosions of flavor. Elias taught her human humor, showing her how laughter could heal, connect, and disrupt in ways that strategy never could. They walked the fields together, planned for the future, and occasionally argued over whose turn it was to carry firewood or water. Her ship remained parked nearby, a silent guardian of her choice, ready to respond to emergencies, yet content to watch over the planet without intervening. The Dominion fleets, once poised for invasion, now regarded Earth with a mixture of awe and cautious curiosity. They had underestimated humans. They had underestimated love. One evening, under the glow of a twin-moon sunset, Lorana looked at Elias as he leaned casually against the fence, brushing dirt from his hands. You know, she said, I arrived to claim a planet. And now... He turned toward her, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. Now you're stuck with me? She laughed, the sound rich and warm. No, she said softly, stepping closer. Now I'm exactly where I belong. Their hands found each other again, fingers intertwining naturally, bridging species, worlds, and expectations. Stars shimmered above. The wind carried the scent of Earth and life, and in that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to pause for Lorena. The princes who had expected obedience and awe had discovered something infinitely more powerful: the human heart. Unyielding, unplanned, and undeniably captivating for Elias. The human man who had expected chaos and chores had discovered something equally transformative, a being of infinite wonder, strength and beauty, choosing to remain by his side. Together, they looked toward the horizon, Two unlikely allies, partners, and lovers. Together they had rewritten not just the destiny of a planet, but the meaning of power, love, and courage across the stars. And as the twin moons rose, bathing Earth in silver light, Lyrna whispered softly to him, "I came to conquer your world, but I choose you instead?" Elias grinned, brushing a lock of glowing hair behind her ear. "And I'd follow you anywhere, Princess." The galaxy waited, uncertain what would happen next. But for now, the most terrifying alien princess and the human man who had tamed her heart simply stood together, bound by choice, affection, and the quiet revolution of love.